All right, so let's talk about the 4 things that you're gonna want at the intro of all of your sales calls. Number 1, what traffic source do they come from and why are they on the call? Number 2 is you wanna make sure you're on with the right avatar and then pivot accordingly. Number 3, are all decision makers on the call? So this way you don't deal with those objections at the end of the call. And number 4, future pacing the call so they know exactly what's about to happen next. If you add this into the intro of your call, regardless of what industry you're in, obviously you can add some flavor to make it your own, because at the end of the day, sales, it's great to have frameworks. So this way you have a direction to go and there's some structure. But if you want to create art, you add your own flair. All right, it's so important to have a really smooth intro to your sales calls because it's gonna make sure that you're on the phone with the right type of buyer. I mean, the last thing you want is to deal with somebody that doesn't have money, they need other decision makers, and you have all these unnecessary objections at the end of your sales call. So these 4 things are gonna help ensure that you do not stay on the phone with somebody that is not your ideal buyer, or maybe that would cause a second or a third call to happen, which will lengthen your sales cycle and make it more difficult to close the deal. So let's get into that. First thing you're gonna want on the call is to make sure you understand why they're there. Now, a prospect can be on a call for a couple different reasons. Number 1 is maybe they came in from an ad. Maybe the company that you're selling for is running ads. Number 2 is maybe you have an appointment setter in the company and on your team that is setting sales calls for you, Or number 3, right, and depending on the industry you're in, this is probably more common for you in the typical B2B direct selling space, is going to be you've prospected your own deal. So you booked that call on your calendar, whether you door knocked your way in or whether you called them through some kind of list, okay? These are typically the 3 ways that you will find yourself on a sales call. Now, the one thing you can never do in a sales call is assume anything, all right? As my grandma used to say, if we assume anything, it's gonna make an ass out of you and me. ASSUME, right? There you go. You can take some advice from my grandma, don't do it. Never assume anything. We can have knowledge based on language patterns and based on our experience on calls that could let us know what type of buyer or what type of avatar we're dealing with and allow us to pivot a conversation according to their behavior of that avatar, but we never want to assume anything, right? So step number 1 is we want to ask, what attracted you about traffic source to hop on a call with me today? Next thing, number 2, is we want to get into, do we have the right avatar on the call? The real question is there a sale for you to make? Next, it's going to be number 3, you want to make sure all the decision makers are on the call. Okay, awesome, Mr. Customer. So is there anyone else that you'd want here with you in case this is something that you're like, oh my God, I need to put this in my company now, that you feel like would be important to have on the call with us today? Number 4 is going to be future pacing what the call is going to look like. People fear one thing more than anything, and it is the unknown. When they're confused, a confused buyer always says no, and if they fear something, that fear will typically cause them to not want to advance. So anyway, if this was helpful, let me know down below, and especially if you use this, let me know how this has helped your calls. We have other resources and links down below if you want to grab them, from free downloads to different types of training, to other podcasts that we have that are specific to sales, specific to business. You can click those links down below. But anyway, let's close some deals, and I'll see you guys in the next video.